Hey everyone, Mah-Dry-Bread here. Pokemon Red with only first form bugs was a brutal run. Let's follow that up with an incredibly fun sounding Oblivion challenge. Today's the day that we figure out, would I be able to beat Oblivion with only restoration magic? Oh man, I'm super pumped for this one. So what you're looking at is a super long list of what's considered to be restoration magic in this game. It includes the obvious stuff like spells to recover health and fatigue, as well as spells to cure different afflictions like poison or paralysis. There's even a resist magic spell, believe it or not. What you might not know if you're just a casual player like me though, is that absorb spells are listed under restoration. Absorb spells are touch range spells where we have to put our hand on someone and we temporarily steal any skill, attribute, fatigue, magicka, or even health. Basically, it lowers their skill and raises ours by the same amount, and that amount is based on the strength of the spell. Not only that, but Restoration has Fortify spells, so we can raise any stat. Oh, we're gonna have a fun time with this one. Like always, I'm writing this script as I go through with the challenge, so all of this part is being written before I've started. Everyone comment down below and guess if I can win or not. I'm absolutely sure that I can win considering how strong some of these spells are. The fact that we can only damage enemies by absorbing their health in melee range could definitely make things difficult, but once we stack a few Fortify effects, we're probably gonna break the game. I don't think this run is going to be that hard, but it's going to be real fun. Let's explain the rules. We can only cast Restoration Magic. We can't deal damage any other way. Only cosmetic mods are allowed. I just don't have any mods installed. And of course, if you enjoy the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let's do this. So let's start with character creation. I'm a high elf, like usual, since the extra magicka is probably going to be great. I'm actually planning to level up a little bit more in this run than usual, so we'll have some more magicka. Still, having that extra from being a high elf is huge. I'll talk more about the level up stuff later though. For skills, I figured it kind of doesn't really matter that much what we take since we're mostly using restoration and like, you know, athletics for walking. Not that I'd ever make that a major skill though, that's just asking for level up problems. I did make restoration a major skill so that it would level up faster though. It'll probably result in us getting just about no attribute points in anything but willpower, but willpower is also magicka regeneration, so it's hard to really complain about that. For star sign, I went with the mage, since that's an extra 50 magicka, and that's really hard to pass up. Our first step seems a bit obvious, right? We need to go around and buy a few basic restoration spells. See, to be able to make a custom spell, we have to already know a related spell. So to absorb any skill, you just need to know how to absorb at least one skill. To absorb any attribute, you need to already know how to absorb one attribute. Once we have those, we can make any custom spell related to it that we want to. That costs a lot of money though. So one of the first things I do is just run around gathering ingredients to spam out weak potions to sell for money. We need a few thousand gold to unlock custom spells, after all. One of our major skills is restoration, so we already start with a very weak absorb health spell, plus I picked up a slightly stronger one at the store. Let's go find some random dungeon to try it in. So I ended up going into a random shrine called Rolando Vale. Not sure if I'm saying it right. It seems like it's just a standard underground dungeon with a lot of bandits and welkin stones. Now, we can't actually reach a lot of these stones, but I could always come back in here once we have Fortify Acrobatics if I really wanted to. It seems like both of our absorb health spells do pretty well here. We do have to get into melee range, so they deal some decent damage to us when they gang up on us, but it still takes about 4 to 6 hits to make most of these guys run out of health. The hedge mage who kept healing himself was a little bit of a problem, but we did end up taking down everything we found. Plus, check out this hidden passage I found. There was a pretty cool robe back in here that will help get us some better prices at the shop. As cool as it is, I think I might end up selling this at some point just so that we can use the gold from it to make spells? Not totally sure. Sure, this gives us a little bit of speechcraft and mercantilism, but we can get much more by making our own spells. I don't think I've quite explored all of this dungeon, but I got a lot of money's worth of stuff and then just got out of there. Oh, by the way, while I make some money, you know how usually in these Oblivion runs I stay at about level 2, right? I explained why a little bit before, but I have a lot of viewers who have never played Oblivion, so I'll just explain it again real quick. Leveling in Oblivion is super complicated, and basically everyone hates it, so I'll not waste too much of your time. Basically, the enemies that spawn depend on our level. The higher level we are, the stronger the enemies that appear. Problem is, the attribute points we gain per level depends on what skills we've leveled up, and the way it's calculated is extremely complicated if you want to maximize it. The short version is that every skill is attached to an attribute, and once you're able to level up, it takes into account what skills you've raised since your previous level. So you could get a level up where you get a maximum of 15 attribute points, but it's also totally normal to get level ups that are only worth 6 or 7 points, so half as much. But the enemies still get stronger regardless of how good your level up actually was. So unless you want to do a ton of complicated math every single level up to make sure that you're getting just enough skill points before each level up, you'll have many levels where you've actually gotten weaker compared to the enemies, not stronger. In fact, since I do these single skill runs, it pretty much guarantees that I break the leveling system and that we get very few attribute points on every level. I should probably just use a mod to get more attribute points to make it fair, but that's something I'd actually want to run past you guys first, so I'm just not using a mod for this run. There's actually an awesome 10-minute long video called "Why is Oblivion's Leveling System So Broken?" by FETV that does a far better job of explaining this in detail than I ever could. I'll link it in a card, and maybe the description? God, I hope I remember. If I don't remember, everyone yell at me. Anyway, I tell you all of this because I'm actually going to do some level ups today. Thanks to us having all of these fortify spells, I think I could safely level up a bit more than usual. Yeah, I don't have the insane time that it requires to maximize every level up for this challenge, but I don't think that I'll need to. That means that we get new enemies and equipment this run, since higher leveled stuff will spawn, and I'm pretty pumped about that. That also means I'm going to get to do a Daedric artifact quest that I have never done before. While I'm writing this, I don't even know what one I'm gonna do yet. It's a mystery. I guess it depends on what level I'll end up being by the time that I actually have to do one of those quests. Oh yeah, and while I was gathering money, I got the idea to go to the Battlehorn Castle. There's a bunch of marauders here that are super easy to take down, but more importantly, there's a bunch of dead guards here with steel and silver gear that sells for a lot of money. So I took a few trips to go back and forth selling it. Alright, you've heard me ramble enough, right? I want to go give the first Oblivion Gate a try. So the first part of the gate is the outside section. Our stronger health absorbing spell is a journeyman level leech health spell, and it's taking 4 hits to take down scamps with it. They aren't very dangerous, and we heal more than they hurt us, but it's not the cheapest thing in the world to cast, so we do have to sometimes wait in between fights to get more magicka. I guess you could say it's a good thing that it takes so many hits, since each individual spell we deal damage with will get us a little bit of restoration skill. But we can always farm it later with a super cheap fortify spell. I recruited the Kadach guard who's always around here, and although he doesn't do much damage, he helps take some of the pressure off of us when there's a group of enemies. That said, the outdoor section was still pretty easy. Once we got in the tower, it got a little bit harder. It's very dark, so it's hard to see, and it's a lot more likely that we'll have to fight a few people at once in here. The humanoid Daedra in here are much faster and more dangerous than the scamps, as they can get right in our face and spam melee attacks. The nice thing is that they go down in 3 hits rather than 4, but we're terrible in melee, so the fact that we have to get within touch range to hit them isn't great. That said, the spell has slightly longer reach than I originally expected to have. And hey, the money we get off stealing their hearts will really help us with affording those candles that we need to unlock custom spells. I think we can afford those soon. At the top of the tower are just a few more enemies, but they're just as easy as the rest, so it really wasn't an issue. Our guard died before he can make it to the top, but we didn't really need the backup. And hey, we got 2 little pieces of magic gear in here, a vest that increases our light armor skill, and some very weak resist poison clothes. I don't think I have a reason to keep either of these, but I'm sure the money will be good. We're done the tower, so I'll just sell this stuff and then come back. It's not like the city's on fire or anything. You know, I normally just grab Sean Bean and get out of here, but I feel like doing more fighting. Let's go do the Siege of Kadach. It's been a while. So first we have to run around the city fighting tons of stunted scamps. We do get some guards to back us up for quite a bit of this, but they actually don't last that long. They help a ton since we're often fighting a group of 5 scamps or more at a time, but in each section they end up dying before the scamps, so we have to finish them off, and man does it take forever. We're often just running backwards in circles to stay away from them since their shoulder charge actually do a lot of damage. We don't deal much damage to these guys, and our health absorbing spells cost too much magicka for us to spam non-stop, so we have to take breaks to regenerate. It took forever, but eventually we managed to get to the castle courtyard. Now the courtyard itself was crawling with stunted scamps, but at least we have a lot of backup for this area, and the head of the guard is a plot important character, so when he runs out of health, he just gets knocked out and will get back up later. Not too bad overall. What was bad was the throne room. The scamps in here aren't stunted, they're proper scamps. These guys are much bigger, and they seem to cast some kind of damage resist spell. They pretty easily take down all of the guards, so we end up having to hit and run quite a bit. For the first time in this challenge, I actually found myself having to resort to running away while casting minor healing spells, since it was far too dangerous to get all of our health from our absorbing. We came one hit away from death quite a few times. Once we cleared the room, the captain told us to go find the Count. That takes us through some tight corridors full of powerful scamps, and we didn't stand a chance, so I just sprinted through, grabbed the ring off the Count's body, and ran back while casting healing magic. Once we get back to him with the Count's ring, he relieves us of our duty and gives us his armor, saying he won't need it anymore. Maybe you took that off a bit too soon? You okay over there? Yeah, he's got this. I'm gonna go get Sean Bean. Wayne Priory. Wait, is it Wayland or is it Waynan? I don't remember. It's easy as usual since the backup here is actually strong, but I don't like how quickly we've gotten outclassed by the enemies. We've earned a level up, so maybe I'm gonna cash that in and get some new spells. I have some decent money. I bet we could make something better. For our first level up, I took Intelligence, Willpower, and Endurance. It's not exactly maxed out attribute points, but it's better than what I expected. Alright, so we've made some decent money selling all of the stuff that we've picked up so far. Enough that we have custom spell making now. I had to pick up a few weak Fortify spells so that we'd have the ability to make better spells, so our money's a little bit low, but it's time to have some fun. Right away, I make us a new Absorb Health spell. This one is 7 damage per second for 3 seconds. Our previous strongest absorb spell was only 10 damage once. This costs more magicka to use, but it also deals a lot more damage. Plus, it being over time means that we can tag someone with it, run away, and we'll still keep getting health from it. Considering our restoration skill is only 40 and we can't cast journeyman level spells yet, this isn't too bad. Let's go try it out in the bar fight. So the spell actually looks really cool to use. Sorry about the dark room, by the way, I should have used a torch. I'll brighten it in editing for you. Anyway, when we hit someone with it, we actually see a bolt of energy flying from them to us to show how long the spell lasts. I can't really tell how tough this guy was supposed to be, but he went down quickly, so I think this is an upgrade. So while we collect books, let's go over the next part of the run. We have to get a few books in town, and that doesn't require any combat. Then we have to go clear the sewers, and Boris basically does that for us. At the end, though, is a close quarters fight with 3 dudes that can sometimes be a problem. Considering how frail we are, I really think it could be. I just have to hope that the amount that we heal from the Absorb spell is gonna be enough to keep us healthy. Right after that is the Mythic Dawn base, though, and I really don't see us beating that place without getting stronger. Maybe I'll grind our restoration up to 50 after the sewers, and I'll make some journeyman level Fortify spells to boost our stats. That would get us up to, I think, level 4? All my major skills are just schools of magic, so I can't really get accidental level ups when I don't want to, but I did make one of the major skills alchemy. I'm partly regretting that now, because although I enjoy leveling it up quickly for better potions to sell, my money-making process is making me level up. That will make enemies stronger despite me not leveling up a combat skill. I'd need my restoration to catch up since it's all we can hurt people with, but that levels us up too. Basically what I'm saying is that the leveling system makes everything kind of difficult, but if you've played Oblivion before, then you already know that. Anyway, next up is the sewers. Like I said before, it's basically a free area. Boris may suck in combat, but he can still take out rats and mud crabs by himself just fine. We just have to follow him as he leads us to the meeting with the actual threat. So while we walk, now's a great time for this episode's Chimera ad. This week we're checking out the graphic tees. It's been a little bit. Chimera literally has the nicest looking colors on their graphics tees of any that I've seen. I basically only wore graphics tees for a solid half of my life. So I have a ton of them, and none of them look or feel as good as the ones that I've gotten from Chimera. I've been wearing graphic tees from them for about a year now, and I've still not had any wear or tear, and the colors still look as good and vibrant as they did on day one, so you don't need to worry about not looking like the pictures on the website. If you want my personal recommendation though, I really love cool colors, so I think the Flying Whales shirt looks incredible. If you're gonna go pick something up, then make sure to use the promo code Mah-Dry-Bread at checkout to get 10% off your order, and to let them know that I sent you. Now it's time to see how tough the Mythic Dawn is. So the meeting with the recruiter actually didn't go great. We took them down, but Boris almost died in the process. Our strongest absorb is only strong enough to leave them with low health, but not enough to actually take them down. That's a problem, since we can only afford to cast this a few times before we're out. A one-shot would be a lot more efficient. I think it's time we grind up to 50 restoration so we can cast better spells. First though, I have a level up to cash in. This time we got intelligence, willpower, and some speed. I'd have taken more endurance, but I'd only be getting 1 point in it, so it really wouldn't be worth it. Then I went outside to grind restoration by casting the cheapest Fortify Fatigue spell that I had. It takes forever to gain skill in restoration this way, but it's still the fastest way to do it. Restoration is just a very slow leveling skill. Oh, pro tip, if you hold the block button while you cast self-casting spells, you'll cast them a little bit faster. Helps for when you're grinding. Once we get to 50 restoration, I level up to level 4 and gain 3 intelligence, 3 willpower, and 1 luck. Yeah, we really didn't have that many choices for a good third attribute. Maybe in the future we could grab a mod that will make us always get at least 3 in attributes when I level up, you know, to help make the challenges more interesting as we level up more. But for now, this'll have to do. Next, I made some spells. I made a new health absorb spell that does 14 damage every second for 3 seconds. So it steals 42 health, which is pretty good. Super expensive to cast though. Next, I made Fortify Willpower and Fortify Intelligence spells. The best I could make was a plus 18 for 1 minute. Any more than that and it would have been considered an expert spell, and we can't cast those yet. They're pretty expensive to cast though, so I'm not sure if this will work out or not. Worth a try though, right?
Then you have come here to die.
Well, the first part of the fight here goes great, as we can easily take someone down without their armor. Problem is, missing is extremely costly, as when we missed the front guard, we had to run around for ages waiting for our magicka to regenerate. Not only that, but when we did hit, it didn't one-shot him. I think it's because of his armor, but I'm not totally sure. It's also because we've been leveling up though, so enemies have gotten stronger, and our absorb spell just isn't that strong. We don't stand a chance like this. Okay, so what we had to do was go back to grinding restoration. This kinda sucks because it probably means that we can't afford to level up much more since it will hardly give us any attribute points, but on the upside, it lowers the magicka cost of all of our restoration spells, making it far more cost effective. It might even make our fortify spells worth using. I ended up grinding all the way up to level 75 restoration, so our spells went from costing about 115 magicka to costing about 7. Let's hope this is enough. So the first haul of the place went amazingly. None of them managed to armor up before we could take them down, so as long as we were quick, it seemed to be okay. I love the way that they pop up off the ground for a moment as soon as they run out of health. It's so weird looking. Think this will get us in the main room though? There's a lot of dudes in there. I'm skeptical.
You cannot escape the master. Rock paradise awaits me.
So as you can see, the start of the fight went great. Our absorb can really one-shot the weaker guys. Problem is, we take a lot of damage per hit, and Mankar's daughter is here and can really mess us up with lightning. At the end, I had to run away a ton, letting her miss lightning bolts as we tried to charge up our magicka. Because she's so agile though, it's hard to get in close to hit her. She's swinging like crazy with that knife. Eventually, we managed to one-shot her, but we had some close calls. I just have to hope that the rest of the base goes alright. Well, the rest of the base went alright, for the most part. It turns out that even when they armor up, we can still take them down just fine, so I guess just the gate guard guy had more health than the rest of them. Things still go badly if I miss too much and need more magicka, but we do have a bunch of magicka potions that I made, so realistically, it wasn't that urgent. If it got bad, I could drink those and I'd be okay. I just don't want to waste potions. You never know how much you'll need for Mankar Cameron near the end of the game. Now, before we can go do the Daedric Artifact quest, I have to take down some spies outside of town. What kind of surprised me was that neither of them were a one-shot. They weren't exactly dangerous, but most Mythic Dawn goons are a one-shot to our Journeyman level Absorb Health spell, so I might need to actually make something stronger soon. Alright, so I want to go do a different artifact quest. Everyone always tells me to go do the Shio Gorath one, and I figured it's finally time to go do it. He's a trickster god, so I figured this quest will probably be a fun one. Let's just hope that I can do it within the rules of the challenge. First, I bring lettuce, yarn, and a lesser soul gem to Shio Gorath's shrine. These are all super common items that took me all of 5 minutes to find. Most of them are just free in the middle of the Imperial city. Once I offer them up, Shio Gorath gives us a quest. He says there's a nearby town called Border Watch. They've got a superstition there about 3 signs of the apocalypse, and he sends me off there to have some fun. We have to figure out what the signs are, then do them. So I meet up with a shaman, and he happily tells us about the prophecy, but he won't tell us what the actual signs are. He says he doesn't trust me, so I gave him 19 gold, and apparently that's enough for him to spill the beans. He says the first sign of the plague is vermin, and that the second is all the livestock dying. He won't tell us what the third one is. He did mention he keeps rat poison though, so that could be helpful. Alright, so first I go into the inn and get some special cheese from a display case. It's a max quality lock, and we go in with less than 10 lockpicking skill, but I just first try it because my brain is huge and I'm overflowing with talent. That in the lockpicking minigame is just pretty easy in Oblivion. Then I go and drop it into the cooking pot in the middle of town that it says you can interact with, but it doesn't do anything when I clicked it earlier. Yeah, I thought it was pretty obvious that this had something to do with the puzzle. I mean, the cheese had a special name and everything, so as soon as I saw it, I put 2 and 2 together. After sitting around for a while and listening to, well, this.
Welcome to Border Watch.
Suddenly, a huge horde of rats came bouncing in. The townsfolk hardly even seemed to notice, but the shaman freaks out and says that it's the first sign. He puts down some rat poison in the middle of town, then just watches as I scoop it up with my hands and walk away. Then I go and spike the feeding trough for the sheep. So I sat around and waited for them to eat it. And I waited. Any minute now. Oh. Well, I guess they were so overjoyed at the poison that they all leapt 5 feet in the air in unison. I don't even think some of them ate the poison. Next, Shio Gorath told me to sit in the middle of town while he fulfills the last part of the prophecy. So I waited around for a little bit when suddenly it started raining flaming dogs, and everyone ran around saying that they're doomed. After that, Shio Gorath tells us to come back to the shrine where he gives us a comedy weapon that turns people into random animals when you hit them. That was a fun little quest, and it's much easier than the usual vampire one. Sucks that I can't use this thing, but Sean Bean needs it for the main story quest, so I guess I've got to hand it in. Next is the Brooma Gate. Now, this one is always easy since Captain Bird follows us around the whole time and he can't die, but his 2 guard buddies can. So, for fun, I decided to see how long I could keep them alive just by running ahead and taking out the scamps myself. Well, the scamps were all pretty easy, but once we got in the tower is when things got harder. We weren't in real danger thanks to our backup, but often I'd start absorbing health of the Daedra, then they'd cast Dispel right away to cancel my magic. That forces me to cast it again, and that costs a lot of magicka. I hadn't really considered this would happen. That could be a real issue if Mankar starts dispelling me later in the run. Still, we got all the way to the top of the tower without a single guard dying. I mean, until in the heat of battle, I accidentally absorbed a guard rather than the enemy. Whoops. Well, we still closed the gate, so I guess you could say, so far, so good.
So far, so good. So far. far, so good. So 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 far, so good.
Next up is Senkritor, so I decided to make some more spells before actually going in there. First, I made this Absorb Fatigue spell that steals 15 per second for 10 seconds. Now, I don't actually care about gaining more stamina, or fatigue as the game calls it. Weird name, right? Anyway, I don't actually care about gaining more. What I care about is absorbing theirs. When enemies run out of fatigue in this game, they just ragdoll on the ground, kind of like the paralysis spell, but it lasts longer. So, thing is, every single absorb spell is a restoration spell, so we get to use this one. That could be great for immobilizing bosses, assuming it works. I also made a pretty strong spell for absorbing magicka. It hardly gives us any more magicka than it costs to cast at the moment, but I figure it might be worth it when we raise our restoration skill, and it'll still probably help us with the Mankar Cameron fight. I mean, assuming I can even drain enough magicka from that guy to make it worth it. I do remember that he has a lot. I figured these spells should probably be enough for the dungeon, so I started walking there right away. It's actually not too far from the dungeons that we did at the start of the game, so it only takes a couple of minutes to get there. Once we get there, we have to deal with a bunch of ghosts that I figure one absorb health spell will probably take down, and then some skeleton bosses that might be a real threat. Hey, do you think that we can make a ghost ragdoll with our absorb fatigue spell? Normally when they run out of health, they just play an animation where they dissolve into ectoplasm. Only one way to find out. Man, that's lame. So it looks like they don't even collapse. We can absorb them to the point that they can't melee attack, but it still just casts ice spells that hurt a lot, and we have to stay close for the absorb to keep going. Eventually, I just had to start absorbing their health instead, and even then it took 2 hits just to make one ghost run out. I'm gonna have to max out my restoration before the end of the run for sure. Absorb spells are crazy expensive. Now, the skeletons do fall over when we fully absorb their fatigue. Unfortunately, the moment they fall down, the absorb stops, so we can't actually put them into the negatives for fatigue. That means they only trip for a moment, so it's not really that practical. The Destruction Magic's Damage Fatigue spell seems to be a much better version than this. I wish we could cast that. Well, the dungeon ended up being a little bit slower, but not all that hard. The skeletons took 3 absorbs to take down, but they also really weren't that aggressive, and they don't gang up on us, so they aren't really a big threat. We got the armor that we needed pretty quickly. It's time to max out our restoration, though. See, Miss Karkhand is next, and it's the last dungeon of the game before we have the Great Oblivion Gate and Paradise. That means we're not far from the end of the game, and considering Miss Karkhand is full of zombies who usually have tons of health, I really don't want to risk going in there underprepared. Maxing out our restoration will make all of our restoration spells the cheapest that they can be, but we still won't be able to cast anything too crazy without having lots of max magicka. And even though we can cast Fortify Intelligence and Fortify Magicka, it's still hard to really make use of that. We can raise our magicka, but the buff will wear off eventually, and often it wears off around when we'd naturally regenerate our magicka up to that anyway. Maxing out now will help offset that. This took over an hour, by the way, and that's with us using a touch spell now. Touch spells are a little bit faster, so I ended up making a cheap touch spell that had a Fortify Fatigue as the second effect, just so that it still gives us restoration experience when casting. You want a comparison on how long this takes? With Mysticism spells, you gain 3 experience per spell cast. With Conjuration, it's the fastest, at 6 experience per spell. Restoration is the slowest by far, with half of an experience point per spell. So the grind takes about 12 times longer than leveling up Conjuration. I am so happy you can just weigh down the cast button and walk away. This is totally worth it, by the way. It makes our main attacking spell cost half as much magicka as it did at 75. That's huge. After the grind, I slapped together a new absorb spell that steals 12 health a second for 10 seconds. This should be a big upgrade. Let's give it a try at Miss Karkhand. Alright, so this place is a weird one. Lots of goblins, goblin skirmishers, skeletons, and zombies. The goblins and skeletons are all pretty easy since they go down fast from our old absorb spell, and the goblin skirmishers aren't too bad since at least our new spell can take them down, but zombies are annoying. They have tons of health, so we have to hit our new stronger absorb spell on them, then slowly back up to dodge their attacks while staying close enough to them that our absorb doesn't stop. See, we really can't afford to get hit by these guys since they tend to give you diseases that lower your stats. There's a boss fight at the end of this place, so I don't really want to risk that. I did realize partway through though that since you can stack spell effects, I can actually have both my old absorb spell and my new one active at the same time. I still have to stay close to them and it costs a lot of magicka, but it's a lot faster than just waiting for the damage from one spell the whole time. Now, as much as I'd love to show you the actual boss fight, I forgot to record it, and the game autosaved the moment I left the dungeon and noticed that I didn't hit record again, so I can't really go back and just do the fight again. He literally only took one cast of my absorb spell to take out, though. He doesn't have as much health as regular zombies, so it's not exactly surprising. As you can see here on the wiki, he has 15 health times your level, so he's got 60 health. Our spell does double that, so we were in no danger. Still, sucks to lose the footage. I should really save in different slots more often so that this can't happen. Okay, next is the defense of Brooma, so it's back to spellcrafting. Right away, I made spells to fortify our intelligence and willpower by 100 each for a minute. That raises both our max magicka and our magicka regeneration rate by so much that we should be able to really spam out our absorb spell if we have to. I'd love to also make one that increases our acrobatics and athletics skills so that we can move crazy fast and jump really high, but we need to have a fortify skill spell in the first place so that we can craft those, and we actually don't have any. You can't buy any at the store, you have to find a tome that teaches you one, and those are random enemy drops that I haven't had any luck with. It's a shame, we could do some really fun stuff if we had that. I still did make a 100 speed spell though, since we can fortify our attributes, so that will help. It's not as strong as having speed and athletics, but it's still pretty good. Alright, so we're at the defense of Brooma. You know this part, where the Great Gate opens and we have to get in there and close the gate within 15 minutes? Well, there's a lot of enemies in there, and our absorbing spells take a little while to actually knock them out. But I remember from my illusion magic run that you don't actually need to fight anyone in there to close the gate. There's a lot of danger, and we have a ton of people chasing us, but I kinda wanna see if I can just use Fortify 100 speed and run through the whole place. If I had Fortify Athletics too, then I know for sure that I could do it pretty easily. But with only the speed boost, I'm not totally sure. Alright, looks like the Great Gate is opening. Wish me luck. First is the outdoor part. This took 2 tries, mostly because of botching some hard jumps, but man are we ever frail. Like, the normal Daedra in here hit reasonably hard, but normally we're level 2, so they're not that high a level either. Just being at level 4 has them hitting way harder, to the point that we could have easily died in here. The tower was a lot worse though, and it took a few tries. Traps hurt a ton, the enemies swarm us super fast, and the pathway up is a little hard to remember. Some of the doors take ages to open up, so we have to click the door, run around for a while it actually opens, then get through. The speed boost and my health potions are the only thing keeping us up right now. By the time I got to the top of the tower and closed the gate, I probably blew through at least 6 or 7 health potions. Not gonna lie, I'm real worried about how Paradise is gonna go. Even after we finished closing the gate, I used our best drain on the Daedra and watched as it couldn't even take him down without help from the guards. Here I was thinking this run was gonna be easy. Alright, so we need to prepare a little bit before we can take on Paradise. First, I try and make a good resist magic spell since that's under restoration and Mankar is a powerful wizard. 35% is the best I could do though, since the magic resist spell is super expensive to cast. I figure a minute is a long enough duration for it. I doubt a successful Mankar fight is gonna go much longer than that anyway. Now, I'm really worried about if he can actually absorb enough health and magicka from this guy to have any serious effect, since he's got so many resistances. Check out this entry on the wiki. He's got built-in spell absorption, spell reflect, magic resist, and even some shield. If we were allowed to use other schools of magic, then I'd gladly throw some weakness to magic spells on him and just overpower him, but those are destruction spells, so I can't. Our only way to damage him is with absorb health, but maybe we can just make him a sitting duck. Check this out. It says in the wiki that if we lower the NPC speed to 0, then they just stand around and stop being aggressive. I don't know if we could actually drop his speed to 0 though, considering absorb just gives us his speed for the duration of the spell itself. Well, I doubt I could cast a 100 power speed absorb spell, so we might have to save that strategy for another challenge. To be honest though, I'm not really sure how I'm gonna win this one. Maybe I'll just have to use tons of potions. I mean, some buff potions could maybe help us, but at the same time, you can only drink so many potions in a row, so saving my potion uses for all those healing and magicka potions might be the winning strategy. I can't think of anything else I can do to prepare for this now though, so I'm just gonna give it a try. Wish me luck. So first up is the Savage Garden. I'm noticing that there's a lot more enemies here than usual, including some kinds of scamps that we fought back in Kadach Castle. The raptor dudes, who I never remember the names of, are kind of annoying to fight here. They lunge at us to keep us out of their range. We often accidentally walk back too far and break the range of our absorb spells, making us stop doing damage. For the first time in this run, I've actually had to put my dukes up and block, partly so that we wouldn't walk out of range, and partly so that we could tank damage in case I was actually getting hit. We could take them down, but they were much harder to dodge than most of what we fought. I want to know that guy's story. So the boss of this place loves setting us on fire, and it makes it pretty much impossible to see. I quickly switched the camera to third person, and it helped figure out where he was, but now it's super hard to aim our touch spells. He actually took me out. This is the first boss that's killed us. The second try went way better as I just jumped him before he started talking and got both absorb spells in. He actually died before I ever had to recast it. Kinda wish I did that the first time. Next is the Grotto, and it kinda surprised me. I was originally worried about the quantity of enemies in here, and yeah, there's a lot, but they were all going down super quickly once we slapped 2 different absorb health spells on them. In fact, we were taking down enemies so quickly that the guy who joined us in here couldn't keep up with us. I ended up having to go back and find him again at one point, just because I figured I needed the backup for the big boss fight that's coming up. Speaking of, we're on the last path before we reach Mankar. I figured this fight is either gonna go really well or really poorly. I don't really know how much of an effect my spells are gonna have. I don't think he'll have tons of health, but with all of his spell resists, I figure that he'll have plenty of time to dispel our absorbs. I'm not really worried about him hurting us since we heal by so much, but I think if we got ganged up on by his kids, we'd probably get taken down pretty fast. Make your final guesses on if we can win this or not. Let's do this. Alright, first fight with Mankar. I use our 1-2 punch of our best 2 absorb spells to start taking down his kids before Mankar even stood up. Then I slapped the same combo on him. We kept the absorb on for about 5 seconds, then he leapt for joy. I stole his robe and he took a nap. I can't believe how easy that was. Finally, my first mage's robes. Well, we're in the last little bit of the game now, the Siege of the Imperial City. The first section is usually easy since we have lots of backup, but it gets harder in the next area since most of them don't follow you. But strangely, despite the enemies being much stronger due to our higher level, nearly every soldier here not only managed to survive, but they even all walked through the door. I've never seen that happen before. I mean, some took longer than others. Martin, get in there, this is urgent. In the end, all of them went in. Except for one guy. He really didn't want to go in that door. Naturally, we had a super easy time in the next section since we had so many troops with us. I could just run to the checkpoint, Sean Bean ran right to us, then we ran right into the temple to beat the game. Alright, that was a really fun time. I was hoping that I could break the game a bit more, but the fact that I literally never found a tome with a Fortify skill spell meant that I couldn't make any custom ones. I'm sure some of you guys who are better at the game than me, though, know a better way to get Fortify skill spells unlocked. If you know, then let me know in the comments section, and maybe I can do something fun with that in another challenge run. I really hope you guys like that one. The next challenge will be up next week on Saturday like usual, with Pokemon Gold with only one Corsolia. Corsalia? I never feel like I say that right. It's honestly a really cool Pokemon, so I'm happy that so many of you guys suggested it. As always, I'm looking forward to your suggestions in the comments, in the challenge request section of my Discord channel, and on Twitter. Subscribe, ring the bell, stay tuned. Outro time. I want to be quick because I don't know if you can tell in the voiceover or not, but I feel like I'm getting just a little bit sick. I think my voice is okay right now, but I don't know. I don't know if it's noticeable or not. But I want to get the voiceover done quick and everything, because like if I go losing my voice or something, then I'm going to be real happy I got it done early. I'm going to be doing more of these Bethesda game runs. In fact, I think the next one I'm going to do is in like a month. I'm planning on doing my first ever Fallout 4 challenge. I'm pumped about that. If you've been watching for a while, you probably already know that I Let's Played all of Fallout 4 when it was new, and I did that like companion guide video on Fallout 4 forever ago. I'm not too worried. I'm not as experienced at Fallout 4 as I am at like New Vegas, but I've beaten Fallout 4 on survival difficulty without using power armor. Back when I used to work for Shoddycast, I did that once thinking I'd make a big video on it and it'd be really cool, and I have all this footage sitting around for it. And then I don't work for Shoddycast anymore. So I have this like half-completed script from years ago. I have all this footage still sitting on a hard drive. I should probably make that video one day because people would probably really like it. It was a fun time. It was really hard and the game was glitchy and oh my god, crashes are so bad in survival mode. But yeah, I'll make that one day. So I'm looking forward to doing a challenge in Fallout 4. So look forward to that one. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and until next time, have a nice day.
So far, so good. 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 So far, so good.